This is TWBF Bass Fishing here, coming at you live from my den, the fish den in Delaware, Ohio. I got a video for you today. I'm going to show you my three favorite late fall or early winter transition baits. I've been catching a few fish on them, my home lake here. On Alum Creek, and we'll start out with number one being the A-rig. I'm sure unless you've lived under a rock in the fishing world for last 10 years or so that you heard of the A-rig. It's kind of a controversial bait. When it first came out, there's a lot of terms won on it, and if you weren't throwing one, you were not going to win. It's calmed down since then, and it's not all tournaments allow an A-rig, so you need to know your rules before you enter a tournament if you count on throwing one. So there are also different states have different rules, like how the number of hooks you can have fishing on one line. Like some states, like Texas, I think it's 5. Ohio is 3. And some states are 1. Even if you live in a state, even if you live in a state that allows only 1, you can still use an A-rig and still catch fish on it quite good, nicely. So, and I'll tell you about that here in a minute. But yeah, if you don't know what an A-rig is, you're going to cast this thing out, and it's imitating a school bass. And it's going to go through the water column just like that. And excuse me, my TV popped on. Okay, got that TV out of the way. Now, you got different wires. You get anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 on up wires that you can hang baits from. And in Ohio here, we're allowed 3 hooks, and what I do is I put jig heads on the 2 on the bottom outside each, and 1 in the middle. The 1 in the middle is always going to be bigger than the 2 on the 4 on the outside. It gives them a target area. What I like to do is make this one a little bigger than the other 4, and also have it tip the either red or chartreuse on your tail. It gives them a target point. 9 times out of 10, that's where I catch my fish. They see that bigger bait in there and they just want to grab it. I'm usually throwing here in my home waters a 3.8 for the middle swim bait, and either 2.8 to a 3 for all my outer baits, and I throw all Kitex. And if you don't know how to rig a dummy up, a dummy teaser bait they call it, they have these things called hitchhikers, and what you do is that's your little hitchhiker right there. You clip this on to one of these swivels on your A-rig wires, and you just screw your bait up on there. Like so. Now if you want to use your jig heads and add so you can have more weight on this thing, just clip your hooks off your jig head, but leave enough on there for to hold your bait on. And while I'm talking about this bait, I'll have some clips of some fish catches here just this few weeks ago, last week, of me fishing on Alum Creek, catching some nice fish on this A-rig. So while I'm talking about it, you can watch these clips. This bait is mostly used in open water. Now you can use it around wood if you want to use these belly weighted offset wide gap hooks. You can rig these baits Texas style, and you can bury your hook up in it just like a Texas rig. And it's a belly weighted hook. You put it on there and you just rig it Texas style, and it's weedless. If you want to throw it around snaggy cover. But I mostly use this in open water around rock, mainly. And bass usually feed going up. What I like to do is I like to cast this rig out. Say there's a building foundation like on Alum Creek in 16 feet of water. I'll throw this out, I'll count it down to 14 feet and start reeling. And once you start reeling one of these, that's where this bait is going to stay. And as you get closer to the boat, of course, you know your lures are coming up. So you got to slow down your retrieve to keep this in the strike zone longer. These things love to rise. And that's one reason I use, you can use anywhere, I recommend anywhere from 5.8 to up to a 6.3. I like a slower retrieve reel for that reason, to keep these baits down in the water column. Now this happens to be a bladed model. You can get ones without blades. I like the bladed model. Just the more baits or willow leaf blades as you have, the more realistic that this school of bait is going to look like. Now if your state only allows one hook, rig the middle hook. Rig it just like I do ones with the 3 or 5, but you're going to have to use dummies on all the rest. So rig the middle hook with a 3.8, dye the tail the same, and then use those hitchhikers I was telling you about, and put the 4 on the outside and the bottom, and you can still catch fish with just one hook. And most of the time they hit that middle one anyway, even when I got 2 other ones. Not always, but most of the time. I like to use I think it said 2.8 to a 3 for my teasers, and I like to use 20-pound fluorocarbon, 20 to 25. A lot of times I'm throwing these in clear water for smallmouth, and I don't like to use braid. I just feel like they can see it, and sometimes they might not hit it, and for that reason I'll use 20 to 25-pound braid. And this is a Yum Flash Mob Junior. This is my favorite A-rig, and when I first started throwing these A-rigs, I didn't like having to use a 7.6 for, you know, they recommend a 7.6 rod, and I was using heavier baits, heavier jig heads, like a 1/4 ounce up to a 3/8, thinking I had to, but I downsized to a 7-foot 2-inch rod, a medium heavy, and this Flash Mob Junior is also a smaller, more finessier bait, and I enjoy throwing it a lot more now. If you don't enjoy throwing something, you're not going to throw it very much, and that's the way it was when I first started. But now that I've downsized everything from the A-rig to my rod length, I enjoy it a lot more. I'll pick this thing up. I even catch fish on this in the summertime also, and you can catch fish on it year round. You guys are lucky that can afford a live scope. These things show up really well on your live scope, and you can slow it down or speed it up and watch that bass come up behind it. They like to follow it. They like to follow it before they commit. So yeah, I'm going to get me a live scope here real soon, one of these days, and 'cause that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure it's not the cure-all. There is never a cure-all lure. There's never a cure-all technology-wise. You just got to put all your tools and use them all together with each other to help you find more fish. And so that's it on the A-rig. Now I'm on number 2. Late fall into winter transition is there's sometimes fish will still be shallow, and especially the grass is still green. You want to look for the green grass. And if I need a bait that's going to cover a lot of water quickly for me, I'm going to pick up this just out here recently, the Mini Max chatterbait. Mini Max chatterbait. This has been a good bait for me this year. I got some clips on me catching some fish on this here too. And this is still a 3/8, but it's more compact. Still got great components. And it's got a smaller blade. And what this is going to do for you is going to put out a more subtle vibration, especially if you're fishing highly pressured lakes like here we have in Ohio. Instead of throwing like everybody else might be throwing the jackhammer or the bigger, real big blade that they got out, you go to this more subtle vibration, especially in the fall. Bait fish are smaller, and this is also smaller. And I got one trailer that I've been using on it that works for me. This is the back part of a Strike King caffeine shad. And I cut it off right there, and I'm going to thread it up. Thread it up on there like that. And there you go. I like a medium to medium heavy, and if you have a fiberglass rod, I like that. I get better hook sets with a cranking stick like type rod, but I also like the Tharp series of rods, 6'9" length for these chatterbaits. And what I like to do right now is throw it out and tick the top of the grass and then rip it out. I've been catching a few fish on it doing that this year, fall. So that's bait number 2. Now one last late fall winter transition bait is a lot of them bass, and the more quality ones are eventually going to be making their way out into the creek channel, out in deep water. And I'm out, I've caught some fish out there in 25, 27 foot of water on Alum Creek, fishing these isolated boulders or little humps, little rock piles. And what I use is a blade bait. This happens to be a cicada blade bait, and there's not much to say about them. There's a couple of trees that I use. One is just to throw it out there and hop it back. Just hop it back. Another one is to put more than one hop in it. Pop, 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 pop. And that's about it for the retrieves. What I do is I get on my fish finder. I look for these rock pile humps mainly, and they got suspended bait around them. I throw it out past it, and I bring it to it and just jig it right through there. And this is a really, really fun bite also. And especially when you're out deep and you get to fight them from way out there. It's a lot of fun. So, but that's a cicada blade bait. And I usually throw a 3/8 ounce on a medium heavy rod. And I like a bait caster, prefer the bait caster with 14-pound test. because you got a lot of zebra mussels out there. And if you're using a spin rod, everybody's got their preference, but I'm breaking off too many times spinning rod with 8-pound test doing this technique, and I get just as many bites using 14-pound fluorocarbon. So alright guys, I hope this video helps you out. That's my late fall winter transition baits that I've been catching fish on this year here. So this will be my last video until you see me making vids from Florida, which I head down there. I'll be down there about January 1st, and I'm looking forward to that. I'll be down there for 4 months. I'll be back here in May. So until then, tight lines and stay warm. I know I will.